Oregon City, the first incorporated city west of the Rocky Mountains, end of the Oregon Trail. It's a great place to live. Some of the costs here in Oregon City are going to be a little bit higher than some of the surrounding areas. Some of the costs are going to be a little bit lower. We're going to go over housing, childcare, entertainment, and more. All that starts now. Hey everyone, Seth Marchant with the Home Team Brokers here. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new to this channel living in Oregon and you'd like to know more about what it's like to live in Oregon, make sure and subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. That way you'll be notified every time we drop a new video, which is every week. And as licensed brokers in the state of Oregon, as much as we like making these videos, if you'd like to move here, if you're thinking about moving here, we'd love to help you as well. If you want to take the next steps in moving in Oregon, you can call, text, email, or click the link below in the description if you want to schedule a Zoom with us. All right, let's jump into the cost of living in Oregon City. We're going to start with housing first. We're going to go through housing with the median sale price of attached properties, 3 beds, 4 bed, and 5 bed single family homes, and just the median cost of all the single family homes in Oregon City that have been sold in the last few months. There's only actually a couple attached homes sold in Oregon City over the past few months, so not a huge sample size, but median sale price was $415,000, average was $418,000. Now for 3-bedroom single-family homes, the median sale price over the last few months was $565,000. Average is a little bit higher than that, $596,000. 4-bedroom single-family homes, the median price was $639,000, with the average being $660,000. And then 5-bedroom homes. There are a fair amount of 5-bedroom homes in Oregon City. There's a fair amount of larger homes in Oregon City. About a couple dozen sold in the last quarter or so. And the median price for a 5-bedroom single-family home in Oregon City, $777,000, and the average was closer to $920,000. For both attached and single-family homes sold in Oregon City over the past few months, the median was $590,000 and the average was $636,000. So you're looking at about somewhere around $600,000. Which comparatively to like a Portland proper, Southeast Portland, is around the same price. That's around their average, maybe a little bit higher. And that's higher than the countrywide median or the countrywide average. That's going to be closer to $500. Cost of living in Oregon in general ranks somewhere in like 11th or 12th in the country. So not inexpensive to live here. If you're coming from California, it's going to be less expensive. If you're coming from less expensive places like the Midwest, you're going to find that like in Oregon City is going to be probably quite a bit more expensive than where you're coming from. Now, HOAs in Oregon City, you won't find too many HOAs in Oregon City. Not so much like neighboring West Lynn or Happy Valley. You do have something called neighborhood associations in Oregon City. And according to the city's website, neighborhood associations, the number one goal was a comprehensive plan based on citizen participation goal of 1976 land use policies for Oregon City. The 1976 policy seeks to provide an active and systemic process for citizens and a public agency involvement in the land use decision-making for Oregon City. It says presentations are regularly made to neighborhood associations by the city developers, the school district, other units of government, and business community on plan proposals, ballot measures, and other topics of interest. So neighborhood associations discuss other topics and plan activities on neighborhood projects. So you have neighborhood associations in Oregon City, don't have a ton of HOAs. There are a few HOAs in some of the more expensive areas, such as Hidden Lake Estates or Beaver Lake Estates. HOA for each individual home is going to vary in those areas, but they are high. I've seen kind of on average anywhere from like $200 to maybe upwards of $400 per month. Now, those estates are both sort of nestled around a reservoir, a lake, so it's a man-made lake. That's not going to be common, so it's pretty uncommon that you would bump into an HOA in Oregon City. If you do, not going to be super expensive, but in Hidden Lake Estates and Beaver Lake Estates, going to be on the higher side. Now for entertainment in Oregon City, overall, I would say your entertainment is pretty good. It's probably going to be a little bit on the less expensive side compared to some other cities, some neighboring cities. The downtown in Oregon City is probably one of the better downtowns in Clackamas County. It's probably one of the more lively downtowns. Got a lot of great restaurants, a lot of events that take place down there, great farmers market. One of the newest additions to the downtown area is something called Corner 14. It's covered food carts. There's an indoor area as well. Oftentimes there'll be entertainment, so a band. They have axe throwing there. Right across the street from them too, don't overlook it, but you have OC Brewing as well with food carts right behind OC Brewing. And you'll oftentimes see a lot of people hanging out right there on those 2 blocks. And as far as the food costs and the beer and the drink costs go, right on par probably with averages, maybe a little bit less than with some of the prices that you would see for kind of some of the more popular food carts like in Southeast Portland. Aside from the downtown, you do have a lot of great parks. You have a handful of golf courses. You have Stone Creek Golf Course, which is an award-winning golf course. I think it's a great golf course. I'm not a golfer. I have golfed there. I wouldn't consider myself a golfer though. They do have a 2.73 mile cedar chip trail that goes all the way around the golf course. That's great for a walk or a jog. I spent a lot of time jogging around that trail. Oregon City also has a fair amount of wedding venues. They do have some wineries there. One really picturesque winery that also serves as a wedding venue is Villa Catalina. Not really a property that you're gonna find anywhere else in Oregon. It's sort of like a Tuscany, like Italian style villa property. So it's a really incredible property. And it's usually not too crowded there actually. Kind of a little off the beaten trail, sort of hidden gem that you won't find kind of somewhere else in the Portland metropolitan area. So overall, your entertainment in Oregon City is probably pretty good and probably right on par with a lot of other entertainment, if maybe not a little actually less expensive than the Portland metropolitan area. And then coming soon, hopefully coming soon, the Willamette Falls project. So downtown Oregon City sits right next to the Willamette Falls on the Willamette River. It's the largest waterfall, I believe, by volume in the United States. And there's a bunch of commercial, industrial buildings that are currently unoccupied, that have been sitting there for years, maybe even decades. Some of them have recently been demolished. But there's been developers that have been working back and forth for years, maybe even longer than years. Maybe it's been over a decade now. I'm not sure when they first started working on this, but trying to work to revitalize that area that's not currently being used, to restore it and put up some commercial buildings and also some residential buildings and create a river walk where people can really appreciate the beauty of the Willamette Falls and the Willamette River. Whereas currently right now, it's a lot of industrial area that's just sitting there and nobody can really even access that area. So if that comes, that's gonna provide a lot of great entertainment and should really boost kind of the overall value of the area. I think we would probably all welcome that. There's a lot of really great real estate in downtown Oregon City, not currently sort of being enjoyed and being used by people. So I think we're all pulling for the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. All right, your commute. If you live in Oregon City, you're probably gonna end up spending a little bit more money than a lot of other places that you might live in Portland. It is a little bit farther away from things when you look at it on a map. It's about 16 miles from downtown Portland. I can get from the top of the hill without traffic, usually the top of the hill being closer to Clackamas Community College, not the downtown when you look at a map. So you'd be taking 213 to 205 to 99 down to Portland. Traffic in that section, kind of in that part of the metropolitan area, isn't terrible. And if you can beat traffic and maybe go downtown before or after traffic, you can get downtown in kind of like the low 20s of minutes, 22, 23, 24 minutes. Google Maps says it's about 30 minutes, and when you start hitting traffic, it could definitely be a little bit more than 30 minutes. And when you look at Oregon City on a map, there's a lot of properties outside of city lines. So if you Google search Oregon City on Google Maps, you can see the city lines. If you type in the zip code 97045, you can see the entire area. You can see it extends quite a bit beyond city lines. So there's a lot of people that live in Oregon City or consider themselves living in Oregon City. If you're closer towards the top of the hill, if you're more southeast, you could be looking at commutes to Portland like 45 minutes or so. So the boundaries outside of the city limits for that zip code 97045 go pretty far. And when you look at a map, you probably notice there's not a ton to the south and to the east of you. So people that live in Oregon City probably tend to find that they're driving a little bit more than other people around the Portland metropolitan area. So your gas is probably going to be a little bit more expensive every month. All right, average age of homes in Oregon City, like I mentioned, first incorporated city west of the Rocky Mountains. So we're gonna have some old homes here, right? There are still a lot of homes, especially around the downtown area, that were built in the early 1900s, and a lot of construction that went throughout mid-century. There is a fair amount of new construction, and probably will continue to be a lot of new construction because Oregon City is a popular place and a place that's being rapidly developed. But overall, most of the homes in Oregon City are going to average somewhere in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So the average age of the homes in Oregon City is going to skew on the older side. So you're typically going to be looking at more maintenance on homes in Oregon City. Greater chance that you're going to need a new roof in the future, new paint, new siding, hot water heater, furnace, all the kind of expensive things like that. Decks, maybe that deck needs to be replaced. You'll find a lot of lots in Oregon City too with a lot of large, big, like old growth trees too, which is harder on your roof and your gutters. We get some storms, some wind storms. We've had some recently here in Oregon that will knock some of those big trees over, some of those big branches, which can obviously do damage to your roof, to your property. But the most kind of common thing is just dropping leaves to fill up your gutters. So chances are you yourself are going to be on the roof or paying somebody else to get up on the roof at least once a year to clean out those gutters. So overall, your maintenance in Oregon City for your house and for your property might be a little bit higher than some of the other areas that are surrounding it. All right, next is property taxes. Now, property taxes can be a little bit complicated. They can be especially tricky when you're dealing with properties that are brand new, sitting in the same neighborhood or right on the same street with a property that might be 100 years old. And that's because we have a law that was passed in 1997 that restricts property taxes going up more than 3% per year. So homes that were built before 1997 have sort of enjoyed this cap on property taxes, over the last few decades, whereas you're not going to get that as much with a home that was recently built. So the property taxes can be a little bit complicated. You can watch our video on property taxes right here if you want. But a couple things to note about Oregon City. When you pay property taxes, there's two different values. There's the market assessed value and the maximum assessed value. You pay taxes on whatever is going to be lower. In Oregon City, that comes out to around an average of about 1%, and average market assessed values on homes is probably going to be somewhere around $500,000. So just an average home, you might be paying somewhere around $5,000 for an average home in Oregon City. Beyond that, you do have additional bonds that can be levied that the citizens voted for. And those do tend to be a little bit higher in some of the surrounding areas, specifically Westland, Wilsonville. The Westland-Wilsonville School District voters approved a new debt which increased the tax rate by 36 cents per every $1,000. Clackamas County has about 365 tax code areas. And so what you're going to find in Oregon City is beyond your property taxes, you do pay for these bonds and that citizens vote for. And in Oregon City, they might be a little bit less than some of the other surrounding towns like a Happy Valley or like a Westland. And one of the easiest ways to determine what the property taxes are, if you're unsure or don't have a good method to do so, is just to simply get in touch with us. We can take a look at what the property taxes were from the previous year and tell you what they're going to be for the next year. And another thing to note about Oregon City, the typical consolidated tax rate within the city runs about $14.50 to about $23 of its per $1,000 of assessed value. Outside the city, it's about $10 to $18 of assessed value. And again, looking at a map of Oregon City, that zip code 97045, you'll see there are a lot of properties that are actually outside of city lines. So it's possible that if you are looking for property in Oregon City, you might be outside of city lines and your taxes might be a little bit less. But again, if you want to know specifically on a property, get with Paul or I, and we'll be able to tell you exactly what it is. All right, childcare. Now, the childcare is something that I found that tends to be a little bit less expensive than some of the surrounding areas, a little bit less expensive than Happy Valley or Westland or maybe in Milwaukee. I also find that there does tend to be more childcare facilities in Oregon City, about 100 or so, maybe a little bit more than 100. And that might be the reason why your average costs are a little bit lower. So for example, Happy Valley average maybe is a little bit closer towards $1,300 a month. Oregon City closer to $1,000 a month, maybe even a little bit less. I've seen some averages closer to $900 a month. So you might find a greater variety and a greater selection of childcare providers, and you might find that the cost is going to be a little bit less than a lot of actually the other areas in the Portland metropolitan area. All right, household income. So household income in Oregon City, a little bit higher than the average in Oregon, but again, kind of same thing as the childcare, a little bit lower than surrounding cities, Westland and Happy Valley. Your average household income in Oregon City, $94,000, while the median household income sits at $81,000. Portland, the median is $73,000, the average is $100,000. Statewide average is $88,000 and the median is $65,000. A little bit above the average statewide, but less than the Portland metropolitan area. Definitely going to be less than Happy Valley or Westland. So to recap with you, Your housing is going to be right kind of in the middle. Entertainment, I think, is going to be a little bit less. Gas is going to be a little bit more. The age of homes is going to give you a little bit more maintenance. So maintenance for your home is probably going to be a little bit more expensive, and your childcare is going to be a little bit less expensive. Now, when you factor all those things together, you're probably coming out with a pretty good average for Clackamas County or for the Portland metropolitan area, maybe a little bit less. So I would say Oregon City is probably a pretty good value, which is probably a reason why so many people are moving there. It's not the most centrally located, but it's not that far away, and it's got kind of all the amenities, pretty much everything that most people would want, with a good selection of urban and both suburban homes and neighborhoods. And it's continuing to grow and becoming more and more popular. If you have questions about Oregon City or any homes in the area, if you'd like to learn more, you can call us, text us, email us. If you want to take the next steps, you can also schedule a Zoom call with us by clicking the link below in the description. And if this video helped you, give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment if you want to weigh in on Oregon City or the cost of living in Oregon City. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure and subscribe to this channel, Living in Oregon, and hit the little bell. That way you'll be notified every week when we drop a new video. Until next time, take care, everyone.